Can Keir Starmer survive these election results?
Robert Jenrick.
Well, let's take a second to step back and remind ourselves that most of these elections wouldn't have even happened if Nigel Farage hadn't taken Keir Starmer, the Labour government, to court, and the Conservative Party that was in cahoots with them, and forced them to happen. So those people would not have had their vote in the first place. And we can now see why people tried to deny you your vote. Because the results that have come through over the course of the day have shown that this is, I believe, the beginning of the end of the two old parties that have run this country for so long. And millions of people have turned away because they feel that both of those parties have let the country down. Not just in the last 2 years, but over many years. That living standards are stagnating, that immigration is out of control, that our high streets are hollowed out, that crime in cities like London are too great. And
a lot of this under the Conservatives when you were in power, and when you were in the part of the government.
This is a reflection on politics more generally.
That is true, is it not?
It is, absolutely, Fiona. This is a reflection on the way we've been governed for a very long time. I don't think our country has been well governed for most of my adult lifetime, and I take my share of responsibility for that. And people are voting for something different now. They want to see real change. And that is one of the reasons why millions of people have voted Reform. And they voted Reform from the Welsh valleys to the Highlands of Scotland, from England's industrial towns and cities to the shires and the counties of East Anglia, because Reform offers something different from the old politics which is seen to have failed people. And to answer your question directly, where are we left tonight? Well, I believe we're left with a lame duck government run by a lame duck Prime Minister who doesn't have any ideas how to fix the challenges that you and millions of other people are facing right now in the country. And whether Labour backbenchers or indeed cabinet ministers like Peter choose to get rid of him or not, it's not going to make a difference. We need a general election. I think a general election is inevitable. And when it comes, what we've learnt in the last 48 hours is you can get change. You just have to vote for it. And a party like Reform is waiting to take the country in a better direction and to ensure that we can finally fix the challenges that we've faced for far too long.
Piers.
Silence. Wow. Not so fast, Reform. Yeah, of course he should go. I mean, let's be honest. This has been an absolute shambles. A shambles. Let's do a quick test. Who here feels better off under Labour? Nobody. Not one of you. Not one of you. Yet they came into power 2 years ago, under 2 years ago, with a thumping majority. And all this talk of change and hope, they'd had 14 years to think about what they would do if they came into power, this Labour government. 14 years. And what do? Day one, Keir Starmer says, things are going to get worse before they get better. Well, he wasn't kidding. He wasn't kidding. We should have taken him at his word then.
So is Nigel Farage the answer, as Robert believes?
Well, the point I'm going to make is, since then, we've had a series of broken promises and U-turns on an unprecedented scale. It's almost like every policy initiative Labour came up with, they've immediately done a screeching U-turn when the public has gone, what is this nonsense? And so it's been, in my lengthy period in the media, 40 years or so, this has been the most shambolic government I have ever seen. And that is why you have now Reform surging around the country. I don't think it's particular. I give them credit. In a few years that they've done this, it's an amazing achievement. I give them due credit. But the difficult part for them will come now, because I don't think people are voting for Reform's plethora of beautifully thought out policies, because we don't know most of them. We know what they think about immigration, and people can have their view about that. But we also know that they are a product of persistently failing governments now going back nearly 2 decades. And you're seeing the same with the emergence of the Greens, and you're seeing all sorts of parties getting some traction away from the main parties, because we all think, don't we, really, a stain on both their houses. A stain on both their houses. And I think that if Reform do end up with the keys to number 10, as you said. And I think Starmer, if he's watching, he should do the decent thing now and just resign and admit his culpability. But if you do, the really difficult questions are going to start coming thick and fast. And I would start with this one. Only last week, Reform, who we're told are going to be this breath of fresh air, a change, a new hope for the country, we discovered their leader, Nigel Farage, gets a £5 million bung from some bloke in Thailand who has a crypto interest. What is that about? And why are we not talking about that more?
Okay. I will come and ask you about that. We'll get to that. And I'll come to you, Peter, in a minute. Let's just hear a bit from what people. We'll definitely get to that. Man in the stripy T-shirt.
So, if we're hoping for improvement, how are we going to get that with reform if the majority of their MPs are former Conservative MPs, and every single MP that they've got is a former member, at least, of the Conservative Party?
Okay. Man in the green shirt there.
From the history that we've had, we were in a Conservative government for a long time, where the leadership changed and changed and changed, and nothing actually changed. So why don't we not just stick with one term, with one Prime Minister, to allow us to see if he can actually make a difference in less than 2 years?
Peter. That is presumably your view. There's something like 9 Labour MPs now have come out and said Keir Starmer needs to go. A number of cabinet members are now rowing in behind him.
I think it is the point, but let me just be upfront with people about the scale of what's happened and how we are responding to it, and just acknowledge, in every election, political parties and those of us who are in leadership positions within political parties get a tap on the shoulder from the electorate, and it's either positive or negative. We have just had the rug pulled from underneath us.
I mean, it's been an absolute catastrophe, hasn't it?
It's just what I just said, yes.
A total catastrophe.
I'm not denying that.
Okay.
I'm actually just, I want to preface the start by acknowledging that. We were voted on a landslide just a couple of years ago because we had had a period of decline in our country as a result of the financial crash, as a result of Brexit, as a result of COVID, as a result of Liz Truss's mini-budget and the Tories and the way they ran the country. And people wanted us to halt the decline. Now, I accept that we have not managed to halt the decline in a way that people feel in their pockets, that they see in their communities, and yes, in the opportunities that they have and they feel are before them. That is what we have to change. I also accept the point that when we came in, we did a lot of tough stuff, and the things that we've been investing in for the long term, the investment in our infrastructure, from Northern Powerhouse Rail to new runways to new reservoirs to 1.5 million homes.
You also changed your mind on a lot of things.
We will get there, but the benefits of the things we brought in at the beginning are not being felt yet. But the tough stuff we did at the beginning, and yes, some of those U-turns we've already accepted. We should not have done, and we shouldn't have made the mistakes in the first place.
Given the question is, should Keir Starmer stay or should he go? In your heart, do you seriously believe that Keir Starmer can win the next election for Labour?
I don't think there is anything inevitable about success or failure of anyone around this table. We have seen the speed of which politics moves on. No. Absolutely, I do.
Really?
Of course I do. Of course I do. There are lots of circumstances.
Anyone believe him?
There are lots of potential outcomes. Politics is coming at us very fast. There are big challenges on the international front at the moment. There are huge opportunities for our country, and we are straining at the bit. Now, I accept we have to do better at grabbing the opportunities, talking about the future, making sure, particularly when it comes to young people, that those million young people that we inherited, that were out of work, training and education, we get them into it and productive, but those key barriers to them succeeding in life and feeling optimistic about the future, we absolutely have to turn around.
Well, let's hear from some of these people. There's lots of hands up. The woman at the front here.
You talk about young people. I'm a first year, but I've done it twice. In that time, the debt that I have accrued from doing my degree, which people might find useless, people might find whatever, I do film. And I have a disability, and I've always been told you have to get a degree to get anywhere because your start line is so much further back. I can't really work a consistent part-time job. I occasionally do. I have uni that by the end of it is so burnt out, and who is gonna foot that bill in 10, 20 years' time? Me. So why are we doing this where it's just compounding pressure on everyone, and I don't see it solved in Labour, in Conservatives, in Reform.
In any of the parties?
I don't.
And that student debt is something that comes up a lot on this programme. There's a woman further back. Let's hear from you.
Just going back to the question about whether or not Keir Starmer can survive, I think we've all seen in the public at this point that he's very comfortable with other people to lose their jobs and for him to keep his. So I think he probably will be able to survive, and also the fact that there isn't a viable alternative in the government at the moment either. Just something from what Piers also mentioned, you guys had 14 years in opposition. It's just not good enough. Maybe you've been held to higher account than other governments because we were all used to Tory malaise for so long, but it's just not okay. And whether or not this tap on the shoulder will shake the government up into actually committing to something and not U-turning on it in a week, I think all of us can appreciate if there's a policy that isn't popular. I'd rather a politician have an opinion and stick to it than U-turn. It doesn't help any of us in the end. We don't know if we're coming or going.
Dave, can Keir Starmer survive after these election results?
Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why that is. It's not just about these election results today and yesterday. It's not just about the unforgivable, unfathomable appointment of Peter Mandelson, an associate of the world's most prolific paedophile, which the Prime Minister knew when he appointed him to that role. He claims now he just didn't know how much of a sympathiser with the world's most prolific paedophile, and he thinks that washes. He has zero understanding of how ordinary people think and what ordinary people's values are. But over and above the election and over and above the Mandelson scandal, it's about what's happened over the last 2 years to ordinary people. Large swathes of England have demonstrated in these local elections what we've known in Scotland for some time, and that is that Westminster isn't working, or insofar as it is working, it's working in the interests of Westminster. It's not working in the interests of communities across London or more widely in England, and that's because it's this cosy duopoly between the Tories and the Labour Party, which is actually no more sophisticated than it's our turn now, and in a while it will be your turn. And back and forward it's gone for the last 100 years. And look at the state of the fundamentals in the economy, where the UK spends more on debt interest than it spends on defence and education in England combined. It's utterly appalling. And while that's all happening, under Angela Rayner, the Chancellor, that this weak Prime Minister can't bring to heel, much less dismiss and replace with somebody else, the economy is tanking, growth is flat, unemployment is up, investment is down, recruitment
Dave,
is
it's
down.
worth pointing out, it's not all rosy in the Scotland garden when it comes to the SNP. I mean, far be it for me to say, but I mean, you've got, in Scotland, for example, 9% of patients are waiting over a year for a treatment on the NHS. In England, it's 2%. And that's on your watch.
That is on our watch. And waiting lists in Scotland under the SNP have been coming down every month, month on month, for the last 10 years. We have got the same problem that England had, and we've approached it in different ways.
Much worse.
And incidentally, we measure it in different ways as well. So these things are... but do remember, though, to your point, that what happens in England is not contingent on the political choices we make in Scotland. But what happens in Scotland is contingent on the political choices that are made in Westminster.
Well,
and that's
NHS
a fundamental
is devolved, Dave,
difference.
as you know.
That's
so
a
those
fundamental
are your
difference.
choices.
Yes, but the budgets that are allocated to the Scottish Government by the Westminster Government is not devolved, and we will always be working with one arm tied behind our back
can I just check one thing?
under
Because
those circumstances.
At the moment, not all the results are in for Scotland. So we've had the constituency results, we haven't had the list results. Your leader, John Swinney, said if there is an SNP majority, we will call for another referendum. If you fall short of an outright majority, are you not going to call for that, or are you still going to go for a referendum in 2028, should you be able to get it?
So, you're quite right. That was our campaign plan. Not all the seats have declared, and we don't know what's going to happen with the list votes that we have in Scotland as well.
Sure, so if you don't get an outright majority, are you going to abandon that?
So the reason we were pursuing an outright majority is because the UK exists on the basis of precedence in the absence of a written constitution.
Okay, but that's
so
not
we
the question I'm asking. The question I'm asking very clearly, Dave, is if you don't get an outright majority, and the moment we don't know, will you still press for a referendum, an independence referendum in 2028?
We will continue to pursue independence, whether that's with a referendum in 2028 or some other mechanism. Okay. And I'll tell you why that is. It's fundamental. This election that's been counted today will return a two-thirds majority in the Scottish Parliament of independent supporting parties. The SNP have secured 40% of the vote in these elections, with independence as our priority on top of the cost of living crisis.
Let me bring
that is what we're delivering for the people of Scotland.
So Liz, in Wales, the results have been extraordinary. I mean, Labour has dominated politics in Wales for a century. Tonight, no longer. And Plaid is the biggest party, just short of a majority, but nonetheless the biggest party. Independence. It's Plaid are kind of back, unlike the SNP, are going gangbusters for it. Plaid are rowing back on that idea. Presume that's because you think you're not going to take the voters with you.
Well, for us now, and of course I'm very aware that I am here in London. I am here in London to talk about Wales. The question was about Keir Starmer, but Keir Starmer is part of the symptom of what is wrong with the United Kingdom as a political system. And what we have seen in Wales, of course, is a historic event today. The Labour Party has lost its 100 years grasp on Wales, and it has done that to my party, Plaid Cymru, and Plaid Cymru wants to see devolution working in Wales. I'm sure there are many places within England as well where we could see devolution working way more effectively for their communities, because what we have seen for decades, longer even, is that Westminster works very well for certain people and certain communities, and it leaves the rest behind. So what has won for Plaid Cymru in Wales is a hope for the future, that change can actually mean something besides peddling fear and hatred and division within communities.
But not necessarily independence, Liz.
Is
that right?
Again, coming over to Plaid Cymru, with Plaid Cymru as the majority. Plaid Cymru, of course, we want further devolution, we want further powers. We are the party that stands for independence.
Well, that's further devolution. Hang on, Liz, I just want to be really clear.
We have told the people of Wales that that is their decision.
Sure, but you're the party now. You are the biggest party.
We have told them.
Are you saying to the people who vote for you, we're going for independence? The impression I'm getting is you're not.
We have told them that in the first instance, because the deal that they have been dealt with devolution in Wales is so bad, it has so ill-served the people of Wales, that our job in the first instance is to make it work. And then when people can see the confidence that we can do something better ourselves, then we'll be on a journey. But that journey has to find its own way.
Okay. So, Kevin, can Keir Starmer survive?
Not for long. And not because of these election results. These are a symptom of a much wider problem. It's Keir Starmer's judgment. Lindsay, you asked the question. It's his judgment's the problem. And whether it's Peter Mandelson, the appointment of Peter Mandelson, whether it's...
And can I just say, actually, just for legal reasons, I have to point that Peter Mandelson denies he acted criminally.
No, but you can't deny that Keir Starmer appointed him as the ambassador for the UK to the US, a man who'd had to resign twice in scandal. So it was a poor decision. The Chagos Islands, a poor decision. The winter fuel allowance, the removing of that from pensioners, a poor decision. The family farm tax, family business tax. And this is why the government is falling apart under the leadership of Keir Starmer. He's not up to the job. I'm sorry to say that, but he's simply not. And I think sooner or later, enough Labour backbenchers or cabinet ministers will go to the Prime Minister and say, it's time for you to go. And I don't think that'll be days, but I think it may be weeks or months, but he will not get to the next election. One thing I'd say about this whole thing, and I've been a Member of Parliament for 11 years, I was in business for 30 years before that, is governing is more difficult than people think. And what's one thing I'll give to Keir Starmer is it's tough. And there's lots of different economic pressures, and anybody's trying to run this country at the moment. That's a reality. And so we've got to look at governing this country through the lens of it's difficult. And one or two of the parties here, and Rob has said, you know, people want change. Well, they're getting change in Kent, where you've got a council there, and it's not a good change. A reform council there, and it's not a good change. You've seen a tenth of the reform councillors either resign or defect since they were appointed last year, since they elected last year. It is tough to do this, to make the books balance. That's the reality. So saying they were going to cut taxes, and they didn't mean council taxes now, you know, it was just cutting other kind of taxes. That's, you know, you make these kind of promises, you've got to be able to deliver on them. That's the reality. We, in opposition, we made our mistakes in government. We did some good things too, but we made our mistakes.
What were the good things?
Well, we balanced the books after the financial crash.
Would you accept that the Tories, for a very long period of time before Keir Starmer came into Downing Street, do you accept that you too, with collective governments and Prime Minister, were an abject failure to this?
I don't think an abject failure.
I get a bit fed up, honestly.
You asked me the question.
No, but I get fed up with politicians saying, it's tough. It's tough.
Well,
Let me tell you, I bet most...
You've never done it, Piers.
No, but I tell you what, I could do a better job than you lot.
Well, that's easy to say from the sideline.
I bet we spoke earlier, before the show started, to a gentleman at the top who works in a hospital in ICU, I think he said. I suspect he has a tougher day shift than the average politician. So when I hear politicians talking about it's tough, I reckon we could go around this whole audience and find a lot of people who have a tougher job. Let's find a politician who thinks this is an exciting challenge, not a tough job.
Let's let Kevin answer.
You sat there saying you could do a better job, having never done the job. I was 30 years in my own business, building it from a small business to a national one over 30 years. You can imagine how hard that work that was. I worked more hours every week than I did back then. It is a tough job. There's no question. What you need is a good leader. I think we've got a good leader in Kemi Badenoch. I think we need a good team. We've got a good team and a plan, and we need to set out our plans and subject them to scrutiny. Just a final point, just be on the SNP, because that's such an instructive point. David, you were criticising the economy of the UK. Scotland has been the worst performing part of the UK in terms of the economy.
That's absolutely not true.
That's absolutely not true. If Scotland had grown at the same pace as the rest of the UK, the economy would be £11 billion larger. That's a reality.
So, Scotland's economic output is habitually in the top quartile of the UK. Foreign direct investment, Scotland outperforms every other element of the UK.
Your economy is growing more slowly, David.
We've got more people in work and fewer people out of work. If that's a failing economy, no wonder you got voted out.
Right. Well, we can all trade statistics. I'm going to come back to you in a minute. I just want to come back to one point, because I knew it would come up. So, Robert, since you're here, I want to ask you about it. This £5 million donation to Nigel Farage from Christopher Harborne, it was a gift. Apparently, Nigel Farage says with no strings attached. Is it just coincidence, then, that Nigel Farage wants the Bank of England to have a Bitcoin reserve and halve tax on crypto deals?
Well, I think the real scandal here is that you've got one of the most senior politicians in this country who is provided with absolutely no security for him and his family. He's someone who is in danger, whose home has been firebombed, who has had many, many threats. And
sure, but that's no reason for him not to declare it.
Well, he had no need to declare it. The rules are very clear. That if you get a gift as a private individual before you've been elected to Parliament, before you were even a candidate for Parliament, you're under no obligation to make a declaration.
It depends which... Listen, Robert, you know as well as I do, it depends which bit of the rules... Depends which bits of the Code of Conduct you read. It also says if there's any doubt as to whether that could imply any sense of being beholden, you should declare it.
It doesn't imply any sense because...
So it is just... The point I made, it is just coincidence,
At the time that Nigel accepted this gift, he wasn't even standing to be a Member of Parliament.
That's irrelevant.
Let alone... That's how the rules...
You know that.
But if I may finish my point... The government could resolve this issue tomorrow if they provided Nigel Farage with security for him and his family. And I can tell you this...
So what, he then give the $5 million back? Is that what you're saying?
He would have no...
I'm asking,
no,
would he
but
then?
he would have no need to find private money to fund his own security. Look, somebody laughed in the audience, but I've known 2 members of Parliament who've been killed in the time I've been in the House of Commons. I myself have been a recipient of death threats. My wife is Jewish. We receive anti-Semitic abuse all the time. It is sometimes tough going into public life. And I think those people who do, particularly the most prominent politicians in this country, which Nigel is arguably one or the second most prominent person in British politics today, perhaps after the Prime Minister, I believe those people should be protected.
Can I ask one question?
No, hang on, Piers, wait 1 minute.
Just complete the point.
Wait 1 minute.
If reform was in government, and if any of the politicians on this panel came to myself, if I was Chancellor of the Exchequer or Zia Youssef was Home Secretary, and said there were credible threats to them or their family, in the blink of an eye, we'd provide them with the security.
So let me
they
ask you
deserve.
again then, Robert.
I think that's what everybody in the country should do.
If the government pledged to give Nigel Farage the security he desires, would he give that $5 million back?
Well, he doesn't need to do that because it was a gift, but that's... Wow. But that's... No,
well, it was a gift for that,
it was a gift for that purpose.
So if he no longer needs it, why wouldn't he just give it back?
Rob,
there's another way of sorting this out.
It's all very easy for you to mock this, but...
No, I'll tell you why I'm mocking.
Imagine if you were subject to severe... Maybe you have been.
I've had death threats.
Well, I think people who go into public life should be properly supported and protected.
Listen, here's the point. If it was Keir Starmer, and we discovered last week he'd taken £5 million without declaring it from some crypto millionaire in Thailand, you'd have gone absolutely berserk and demanded he resign. That's the bottom line. What you're saying is total hypocrisy. Total hypocrisy.
It's not. The difference here, Piers, is we're talking about a gift before somebody was even a member of Parliament.
Yes, but you know you have to declare it within the 12 months before you become an MP.
Not if it's a gift.
Rob, there's a way of clearing this up. There's a way of clearing this up which we would all accept and agree to. Nigel Farage could refer himself to the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner.
Wrong.
No, he could do that. There is doubt over this, Rob.
Do you think someone like Nigel Farage should get security from the government so that he can walk the streets in safety?
Well, I think if there's a case to do that, it should be answered on its merits. I'm not against that.
OK, I tell you what, I've got 2 minutes and I want to bring the audience in because you've not got much...
You asked this question last week to Zia Youssef, who was on the programme. He gave a similar answer to the one that I've given. Smears essentially like this have been thrown at reform politicians for weeks and weeks, and they have failed.
I'm not sure I've made a smear. I have simply asked
millions of people have gone out and voted for reform. So these smears from establishment parties and parts of the media will come, I'm certain, in the months and the years to come.
Do you think it's a smear to ask the question?
I do think you are doing this to smear somebody.
Wow.
Because he has not broken any rules. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. He's a man who's purely motivated with his own protection and that of his partner and his family.
Let's hear from our audience. Man there in the front.
I feel like every major party at some point has had a scandal about donors, huge amounts of money being thrown around to buy influence. I'm a student. I'm staring down the barrel of near enough £50,000 in debt to go to university. It really makes me feel like I can't trust any politicians with my vote.
OK. And let me hear one more point. There's something about the middle. Yes, woman there in the middle.
I think this is a classic example of you lot losing your moral compass. I can't believe we're even discussing this. In any other work environment, you would be out the door. And if Keir Starmer goes, at least 3 of you should have the integrity because it's the combination of your policies that have resulted to where we are today. And just by changing your party colour, doesn't absolve you of collective responsibility. And in any good board, the board takes collective responsibility, and I'm fed up of making individuals the scapegoat. Stand up, be counted, and have a moral compass.
Right, OK.